The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Saturdays or Sundays, SOR Media, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of SOR Media is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced? Then come own the night with us.
Little brother has taken control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all
Station atop the mountains of British Columbia, live from SOR headquarters. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, and on Spaced Out Radio on iTunes. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio.
Brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We will expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized.
It's Tuesday, March 6th, Wednesday, March 7th if you're on the East Coast or across the pond, and this is Spaced Out Radio. Hope you had a great day and night. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting right here in the Great White North of the Cariboo region on top of the snowy mountains of central British Columbia, right here at SOR headquarters. Now, we are 150,000 strong nightly on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia. We are on the United Public Radio Network 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. We are also live at spacedoutradio.com. We are also live on The Fringe FM, Spreaker, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember, the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to revolution.radio and donate today. Now, we are all over social media. You can find us live on periscope.tv right now. We are on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, you can follow me at Dave Scott SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. We'd appreciate it. We're on iHeartRadio in the United States. TalkStream Live. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. And, of course, our website is spacedoutradio.com. Now, if you go visit our website, you can go shopping at the Spaced Out Radio store. Read up on the encounter online, dealing with everything strange, paranormal, and odd. My latest blog is there as well. We also got great videos from UFO seekers, Contact TV, and so much more. When it comes to rock and roll, it all started with the King, Elvis Presley. Elvis was a man, a myth, and a legend, all rolled into one. An entertainer starting in 1954 at the age of 19, Elvis took to the music scene and took it by storm. And 2 years later, his first single, Heartbreak Hotel, went #1. His beautiful mixture that combined country, blues, and gospel, combined with his great looks, Elvis had everything going for him. He was a crooner, a sex symbol, and took a shot at acting as well. His estimated music sales have tallied almost $1 billion worldwide. However, he passed away on August 16, 1977, from a heart attack at the young age of 42. At the time of his death, he was overweight and addicted to drugs. However, some believe there are numerous clues that suggest Elvis really didn't die. Could this be the case? Tonight's guest, Richard Carson, has done extensive research on the life of the king. He's more than just a fan. He's someone who also believes Elvis is still living today. Richard Carson, welcome to Spaced Out Radio. Thank you for this entertaining topic tonight. How are you?
I'm doing good, Dave. Thank you for having me on your show.
Well, I appreciate it. Now, we're going to have you for the first 2 hours of this show, and then in hour number 3, the preacher, Eric Markham, is coming on in to join me as well. So I want to say thank you for doing this topic. Were you always an Elvis fan?
Pretty much all my entire life. I first seen Elvis Presley on TV when I was 3 years old, and I was hooked ever since.
Mm-hmm. What made you hooked on the King of Music's music?
Well, I guess at 3 years old, that's my earliest memory of music altogether. And, you know, what better person to introduce a person to music and rock and roll than Elvis Presley? The way I remember that night, I was only 3, and I really didn't know who Elvis or anything was. I always watched Kojak, and that Hawaii concert was coming on. And my mom wanted to watch it, but I was a little toddler, kept turning the channel back and forth. And she finally spanked me a little bit and said, sit on that couch and don't get up. You know, at 3 years old, it was 5 minutes later, I was on the floor trying to imitate Elvis Presley. It was way I've something I've never forgot my entire life. It was kind of like being struck by lightning, I guess. It was something that stuck with me my entire life. And I remember after that, anytime Elvis came on the radio, any of his movies on TV, I was always glued right there. And as I was growing up, getting a little older, I actually had an aunt that knew Elvis when they were kids. They lived in Memphis in the projects, and this was way before Elvis was famous or anything. And she always told me stories about how he would come over. He actually had a crush on one of her sisters. And she told me stories and stuff. And he was my hero at an early age in life.
And, you know, not a bad hero to have, considering he was very much a star. You know, he had all the men wanting to be him, all the women wanted to date him. He really had, in his first 20-plus years, even right up until his alleged passing, he really had the world in his fingertips. He really did.
Well, can't argue there. There was no one like him. But, you know, I remember growing up, and my entire life, I never believed the story that we were told in 1977 about how Elvis died. I remember I was 7 years old when they told us the man died. And there was just too many things that wasn't right. So I have now spent the last 6 years in the social media doing what I can to help people see the truth. that Elvis Presley is still around.
And we're going to get very much into that, but go back to his date of supposed death, August 16th, 1977. I mean, that was one of those deaths that really, really pushed the envelope on the entire industry of music and pop culture. I mean, people were depressed, people were sad, protesting in the streets. Well, not really protesting, but mourning in the streets all over the world, especially in the United States, because this was such a huge loss. Do you see where the impact that he had during his career and how much it left on people?
Yeah, I do see that. I see how it still has throughout the years. You can ask most rock stars today, well, at least when I was growing up, who influenced them the most, and it was Elvis. Same as people growing up, not so much maybe in the last few years, the newer generations, but I'm 48 years old, and people my age, we were influenced by Elvis quite a bit. And like I said, he was the man who created cool. There was nobody to sing like him. He had the looks, he had the charisma, he had the women. And like you said a little bit ago, all the guys wanted to be him and all the women wanted him. So, yeah, he was a star for sure. And, you said that when they told us he died, how it impacted the world. I don't think that anybody really saw that coming before they announced that he died, because Elvis was later in his career, and I don't think the people involved expected quite the impact that it did have when they told us that he did die. But
do you remember your first Elvis song that you fell in love with?
Well, probably Hound Dog. I remember as a little kid, my uncles putting me up on cars, and my whole family called me Lucky. And they had family reunions and everything. I was 3 or 4 years old, and I'd be trying to sing, "You ain't nothing but a hound dog," shaking my leg, trying to imitate him and all that. And I said, it's been quite a while, but that's probably my earliest memory of an Elvis song. And there's quite a few. I really don't have a favorite song, but they all impact your life pretty good.
Why do you think Elvis was able to have such an impact on so many people?
Why do I think he had the impact on so many people that he had? I think that was the life that God chose for Elvis Presley. And I think he gave us Elvis, kind of anointed his voice. Elvis was put here on the world to make people happy with his music. That's my personal belief. And I do believe there's many fans around the world who do share the same type of belief as I got. But like I said, something you really can't describe, because there's never been anybody like him. Probably will never be anybody like him again.
I think you're correct on that, because there really hasn't been very many people who have impacted music the way he has. I mean, yes, you could look at some of today's stars, and it goes across the board. I mean, from country music, you could, look at numerous people. Okay, from rock and roll, the exact same thing, but it breaks off into genres. I mean, some people say it's Kurt Cobain, other people believe it's Metallica, other people believe, that it's, hip-hop and rap, from Eminem and Dr. Dre to Madonna and Whitney Houston. I mean, there's so many talented people out there, but none of them hold a candlestick, except for maybe John Lennon, to what Elvis Presley meant to the music world.
Yeah, man, it was good, but not quite that good. But I know what you're saying. You're right. No one even could come close. And like I said, I think that was this. God put him here for a purpose. And I believe he was to get the attention and love of the entire world through his music. And I think that has a lot to do why so many people love this man and what he gave us. And I do believe that there's a little bit more to the story coming as well. But as you said, we can get into that here in a little bit.
Talk about his death. How did he supposedly die?
Well, they told us that there were so many different stories, though. Like you said, we were told he died of a heart attack. We were told he died of a drug overdose. There was different medical reasons why he supposedly died. The story was never the same. But the story was supposedly he went to the bathroom and read a book, and his girlfriend went in and found him dead on the floor. But there's been a lot of things that have been said by his friends that just don't match up.
And what's not adding up to 4 for you?
All right. There's a story, like I just said, they told us how he went in. He was found in the bathroom on the floor reading a book. His friend Joe Esposito, in an interview, said that he was found in bed. And he was one of them that found him. That don't add up. If he was found in bed, then he wouldn't have been on the bathroom and the floor.
Well, I understand that, but I mean, couldn't it be said that maybe they were saying he died in bed? Because it's a hell of a lot more attractive than, say, he died while dropping a deuce on the toilet.
I don't believe that. Now you're getting into something that, over the years, yeah, there's a lot of people that say that, but that whole story, I think someone put it out, and yeah, friends and family, I think, did help that story get along. I was always told growing up that he was sitting on the floor reading a book, that he didn't fall off the toilet with his pants around his ankles. But then I seen a CD came out where his friend Glenn Campbell said that. Like I said, there's different versions to the story. And this one story about how he was taking a dump and fell off the toilet, I don't believe that. And I think that was very disrespectful. And it's kind of like the whole deal with the drugs. Yeah, Elvis may have had a slight drug problem, but he was also a drug enforcement agent. And they blew the whole drug thing out of proportion so they could pull off sting operations because he was a federal drug enforcement agent. So,
now,
like I said,
right. But getting back to his death here, Richard, for a second, okay. There's a lot of talk when somebody famous dies. There is conspiracy about every time. There's conspiracies about Jimi Hendrix, whether he died the way he did or not. Kurt Cobain, whether or not Courtney Love actually murdered him. Every time somebody famous passes away, especially in the music scene, we always think that they were killed off or murdered, or maybe they are alive. Tupac Shakur is another one that kind of goes down that same Elvis road, where many believe he is Machiavelli, and many believe that he is also still alive, living somewhere in the Bahamas or someplace like that, because he just wanted out of the spotlight and get away from Suge Knight. Now, with Elvis, what would be the purpose of faking his own death?
Well, like I said, he was a drug enforcement agent, and 1971, he went to Washington, D.C. He wrote President Nixon a letter, which is hanging up at the White House, or it's hanging up at Graceland. The fans could see it. He asked the president for the credentials of a drug enforcement agent. And Nixon gave him the credentials. Many people said that Elvis only collected badges, that he wasn't serious. I've shown in a past interview where Priscilla said that, yes, he was very serious about it. He wanted to make a difference in the world. He really was a drug enforcement agent. Okay. He done that from 1971 to 1977. And right before they faked his death, the FBI came to him and said, look, the Weatherman Underground, the Black Panthers, the Italian Mafia, you've been working sting operations against all these people for years. They finally figured it out, and they're going to kill you. Well, Elvis, of course, he's human. He was scared, like anybody would be, and he knew that if he just went into hiding, these people would go after his family. So with the help of the United States government, they faked his death, removed him from the public eye. The original plan was for him to return 2 or 3 years with the truth, and he was going to return to his career. Now, things went wrong after they did it, and he was never able to return. And today the man is 83 years old, and he's trying to show the fans the truth before he really does leave this world. But,
okay,
so there is...
Go ahead, please.
Go ahead. Okay. There is... You go ahead and research Elvis's life. There was many death threats. There was bombs on his airplane and at Graceland. There was people out trying to kill him before they told us he died. The man would go on stage. That last concert that they had on TV, everybody said that he was so big and everything. I seen on Saturday Night Live, they made him look like the Goodyear blimp and stuff. Now, the man was not that much overweight than I am right now. He wasn't all that big. But people were used to seeing Elvis in the movies, a thin Elvis, and he intentionally put on that weight. Too, it was all part of the fake death hoax thing. He had bulletproof vest on, and it was all show business. They had to make it look real. If they were going to pull off, this was Elvis Presley. The man was fighting for the future of America. That's why he became a drug enforcement agent in the first place. He wanted to make a difference. But he got in deep, and it was going to cost him his life, the life of his family. And that's when the government stepped in and helped him, and they removed him from the public eye.
But it was very well known that he didn't really care what entered his mouth diet-wise. For instance, he loved
sandwich.
Right.
Peanut butter sandwich isn't going to kill you. I've had plenty in my life. And like I said, I'm 48 years old, and I'm not in any danger of falling over. But, like I said, he intentionally gained that weight to pull off the whole fake death thing. In an interview that he gave us in 2012, he said that he was intentionally eating fried food and ice cream late at night to match up with a body double that they switched bodies with, a terminally ill patient that agreed to all this. And it was all part of a plan to fake his death. Now, this is something else, talking about the weight. If you go back earlier in 1977 and look at photos of Elvis, the man was not nearly as big as he was at the time he supposedly died. He was also an 8th degree black belt. I do believe he got his 9th degree black belt after he disappeared. He even told people on stage, in order to get that 9th degree, he would have to disappear. But the man wasn't fit. You know, the night before he supposedly died, he was playing racquetball, and he went to the dentist. He wasn't all in bad shape. Like I said, it was a lot of show business there. They had to make it look good. But
Well, let me ask you this, because his autopsy results and report are available online. Whose body was it then?
it was in the film, the interview from 2012, he gives us the name Roscoe Holloway. I wasn't there. I can't give you that much more information about this guy. I don't know a whole lot. But he did give us a 2-hour interview explaining it all in 2012, and he talks about this. And there was a terminally ill patient that agreed to all of this, and the man, Elvis told us in that film that the man's name was Roscoe Holloway.
Which film was that?
It is called Elvis Found Alive. It's a 2-hour interview, and there was a CD that came out with it that had 15 new songs. That's why I was asking you if you could play some music on your show. Elvis has been giving us new music nonstop since 2012. And the mainstream media has kept all of this out of the media. You know, in 2013, a year had passed, and I had been showing the truth in the social media for over a year. And it was blowing my mind. I could not understand why no major news network, no radio stations would even mention this. We didn't see it in any magazines, any radio stations, TV, cable. It wasn't anywhere except YouTube and the social media. Well, in 2013, during the World Series playoffs, I spent almost $1,200 out of my pocket. Now, I'm not a rich person. I wait tables for a living. And this is something else. I've never made one penny off of any of my work going on over 6 years now. Everything that I've done, I've paid for out of my pocket, and I don't do any of it for money. But I spent close to $1,200, $1,100 something, on an airplane to fly around the World Series playoffs in St. Louis, Missouri, advertising this Elvis Found Alive DVD and CD. You know, what happened that day, I believe, proves what Elvis Presley told us in this interview. He told us how there's people in power that is trying to hide the truth because he has information that he has learned when he was working as a government agent. The world's elite, the people in power, are trying to keep the truth from coming out. That's how come it has not been in any of the media. But what happened when I flew that airplane, or I hired that airplane to fly around the World Series, you had all those networks there to film the game that day. And you had this airplane with a banner that said, Elvis Found Alive. The King is back. Not one network even showed that airplane, mentioned it. it was hushed. You know, if this story that came out in 2012 in this 2-hour interview that he told us was not true, those people there with their professional television cameras, they would be filming that plane saying, what kind of crazy nut did that? But, and I tell you, everybody down there around Busch Stadium and around the Arch that day, when that plane was flying around, they were all just looking at it, just, what? They were amazed. They didn't know what was going on. I was on the ground, and I got some video of it that I have published on my YouTube channel, but it's real shaky. But the professional television crews were there, and not one major network covered that plane. So, like I said, I believe without any doubt that shows that what we were told by Elvis Presley himself in 2012 about how the people in power is keeping the truth out of the mainstream media. That just shows it right there. If it wasn't true, like I said.
Back to Roscoe Holiday for a second. From the research I did, according to people who believe in the Elvis Presley conspiracy, that part of the agreement with his terminal bone cancer was that he had plastic surgery to go look more like Elvis, so that way they could use that autopsy report. Was Roscoe ever paid any money to do any of this, or to make sure his family was taken care of?
I have no idea, sir. It's something I don't know anything about. But I do believe that Elvis himself did tell us in the film that this Roscoe Holloway did have some plastic surgery to look a little bit more like Elvis. But as far as the question about this guy got any money or anything, I don't know anything about that. Like I said, I don't know everything. But go ahead.
Okay, so if Elvis was a DEA agent, because it was well known that he was made an honorary DEA agent, do you believe that that honorarium was just for public appeal rather than the true training that it would take to become a DEA agent?
Well, you know, Elvis was military. He had his military training. And I have heard stories, I don't know if there's anything true about it, but I heard there was things when he was in the military that went on. I don't really know. But he had his military training, and he was the black belt martial arts person that he was. He didn't really have to train physically to become a federal agent because he already had that. And he did have his military training. I'm sure that helped a little bit.
But why would he want to get into the whole drug enforcement agency when in reality here he is sitting on millions. He's one of the most popular figureheads in the world. You know, I mean, if he wanted to remain single, I mean, he could have racked up some serious numbers if he wanted to remain single. You know, considering that every woman, you know, wanted to be near him. I mean, it just doesn't make sense that, you know, maybe was it a childhood dream of becoming a cop, or what was it?
He did have a love for law enforcement his entire life. He always loved being a cop. He was honorary deputy in many sheriff's departments before he went and got into the federal law enforcement part of it. He always had a love for the law, I guess. And he does talk a little bit about that in the Elvis Found the Life interview as well. But these are all questions that we're going to have to ask him when he does return. And I hope that will be later on this year. But go ahead.
Why do you think it's going to be later on this year?
He's been telling me that he's ready to do it.
He's been telling you how.
Well, I've got a very wild, strange story, which is for another night. But for the last year or so, I've been in contact with them on Facebook. That's one way. And I chat with them quite a bit there, as well as several fans who have been trying to help get the truth out, as well as people such as old girlfriends that he had, family members. And these people that knew Elvis say that this person on Facebook, who we all believe is Elvis, knows things that only Elvis Presley would know. But let me ask you this. If the people in power are keeping the truth out of the mainstream media, Elvis can't reach out to the fans that way. Where else can he do it? The social media. By doing it in the social media, it's up to everybody on YouTube and Facebook. They don't really know. They're not seeing if it's for real or not. They have to decide. This gives Elvis a perfect opportunity to reach out to the fans, to release new music, and to put the truth out there until the day he can reveal the truth in the mainstream media. And that's why they've been releasing his music since 2012. And I do believe that last year he got his presidential pardon from President Donald Trump to come back. And since then, he has been able to be a little bit open about who he is with certain people. But this is my connection with Elvis on Facebook the last year. You know, I believe the whole time that I've been doing this work, that Elvis has been right here, not too far away from me, watching what I do, helping along. I do believe he's never been able to come out and give me all the answers I need or reveal himself. He did show up at my work in 2014. I'm a waiter at Cracker Barrel in St. Robert, Missouri. And Elvis Presley came into my work, sat at my table, and I got to serve him dinner. It was a night I would never forget. But, you know, it was only about 3 months before that, Priscilla Presley came to St. Robert and did a radio interview at a little bitty radio station a couple of streets up from my house. And the wild thing is, that radio station don't even play Elvis music. It's a classic rock station. And there's been many other things here in this town that I believe they've been doing to kind of show people like, hey, this guy's for real. For instance, after I started making my first few videos back in 2012, I lived right outside Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. It was kind of like Andy Griffin territory if you don't count the military base. Small towns around here. But we got this little newspaper, and after I started releasing my videos in 2012, in the classified ad section, they put out an advertisement, someone did, for the 35th anniversary concert in Memphis, Tennessee. In the classified ad section, in this little newspaper, and at the top of the ad, in bold letters, the ad said, "The King is alive." Well, something more recent that happened. Last year, I got a message. Don't know who sent it to me, but it said, if a helicopter flies over your house, it may be Elvis. He likes checking up on certain people that way. Well, I've lived in this house for quite a few years now, and I've never seen anything like this. I was standing in the front yard talking to my mom on the phone, and I heard this loud commotion. And this great big giant government type helicopter just buzzed my rooftop almost. This thing was just barely above tree levels. If they dropped a marble out the window of this thing, I could have caught it. That was something else that happened. There's been 2 mysterious firework displays that have went off in the middle of town. My house is in the middle of town. It's a small town, but it's in the middle of town. Up through the little patch of woods from my house is a city community center. And I believe that's where these fireworks displays went off. And this was not during any holiday, not New Year's, not anything. The first time, and these city displays went off the first one was about 2 hours. But the strange thing was, this firework display went off after I published a video of me singing, which I'm not that great of a singer, everybody, but still, I tried. And I included some information in the video as well. But after I published that, this citywide firework display went off. And I went to City Hall, my friends singing. I went to City Hall. Never have been able to get an explanation why this happened. About a year later, once again, I got to the point, I was like, I've completed my work. I've done everything I can. And I told the Elvis fans that I'm putting this in God's hands now. And I'm going to do what God wants me to do, which I truly believe that I get to those points, and I'm like, I've got to put this in God's hands and let Him do the rest now. God has lots more for me to do. But anyway, right after I told all the fans that, once again, a citywide firework display went off. And that time my mom was able to see it, or she heard it. She witnessed it. And, hey, it's just a lot of weird stuff going on. Not to mention visits from angels and family members who have been visited by angels, spiritual beings. There's a group of some kind of special ops team that had been working with me since 2007. But like I said, all that's for a different time. But
right,
well,
I want to get to the social media aspect, because social media
sure.
is so dangerous when it comes to people,
Evil.
having fake profiles. How do you know that this is the real Elvis and not just a fake profile online that is, somebody who's pulling at your heartstrings, knowing how much you care? Because Facebook can be dangerous that way. It's not a fun place. I mean, we see it all the time on Twitter as well.
I agree 100%. Facebook, social media is evil. If it wasn't for the fact, I never was on Facebook before I started this work. And if I didn't have to do this work in the social media, I probably wouldn't be on Facebook or any of it right now. I don't have internet or anything. I'm talking to you right now from a flip phone that I've never once turned the internet on. But to get to your question, though, how do you know it's Elvis? Well, anything's possible. It could be somebody that has got me fooled and got fans fooled, but I really, really doubt it. I've been watching this person. I was actually watching them a little bit before they contacted me and let me know who they were. I already knew who they were, though. Because like I said, I've been watching them for a little bit. But this person does not boast. They're not bragging that they're Elvis. They're not asking anything from anybody. They're not even, they use these fake names because, Elvis can't use his name Elvis Presley. They keep going through count after count because of this. And this has been going on for over a year. And all this person is doing is reaching out, connecting to the fans, and sharing information that most of us never even heard of before. But you're so right. There's people out there pretending to be Elvis. And I've heard stories about these people, how they're asking for money, and they're just up to no good. And I got to tell everybody, be careful. But I can tell you something else. This one man that I've been in contact with, and several others that I believe is Elvis Presley. Back in 2007, when I was approached and I was told how I would do all of this, 5 years before I ever even started it. In 2007, I was told that Elvis Presley would be on Facebook, and I was asked to help him. And I do believe that I've been doing this for the last year. But, like I said, you just got to be careful. If someone comes up and says, hey, I'm Elvis, and asks you for $100 or do something outrageous, that should be a red flag. Hey, run away. I would also tell people, if you got a hold of someone that is boasting that they're Elvis or something, Elvis ain't like that. He really just keeps it to himself. Unless you are someone that is really, really out there trying to help and sincere. And then maybe he'll show up and he'll just start talking to you and you'll figure out it's Elvis. And he won't hide it. But I think when he does come back, he will be able to explain this a little better. But you're so right. There are people out there pretending to be him. And for everybody listening, be careful. There's a lot of bad people in the world.
I understand that, but what are the signs that make you believe that this Facebook profile that you were in touch with who says he's Elvis is truly him? What makes you believe that?
I can tell. He talks about things that only Elvis would know. There's things that I know that probably not a whole lot of other people would know about Elvis. And like I said, there's not 100% proof that it is, but there's absolutely nothing at all to say it isn't. You got to have a little faith sometime in your life. And that goes with everything you do almost, unless you got it right in front of you in black and white. And I can tell you, here's something really, really good point I want to make right now. For most of the Elvis fans out there that understand the man's alive, for most of the fans that seen him come back and tell us the truth in 2012 and start giving us music, the only way he has been able to so far. You know, right after he did do this in 2012, I started my work. And I have stuck by this man and the fans and have done everything I can. I have no one here helping me. I was helped and trained for all of this back 5 years before I ever started it. But today I'm doing it by myself. There ain't no one here in my home helping me make these videos. I told you how I believe that Elvis is showing me and everybody in my hometown that, hey, that this guy's for real. He's trying to tell these people to listen to me, that I'm not crazy. But my question is, for everybody out there who could tell that Elvis is alive and he has came back the only way he can so far, if this man that I have been in contact is not Elvis, then where is he? Do you think Elvis is the type of person that will sit back and just let me go for going on 7 years? Because I've been doing this for quite a long time before I ever got into social media. 6 years into social media. But, you know, of course Elvis is going to be there, staying in contact with me some way. He might not be here hanging out with me and all that, but he ain't going to let me go all these years without saying, hey, thank you. You know what I'm saying? That's not the type of person Elvis Presley is. And there's a whole lot to what I do, sir. I have a connection with Elvis that words can't describe. There's some kind of bond there that goes back way before I ever knew about it. It was back way before I ever discovered who Elvis was at the age of 3. And this bond I'm talking about is, this is all part of a bigger plan that God has for all of us. This is my belief. God chose me and Elvis to do something in this world. And I had to do my part. And as I was taught in 2007 how I would do all of this, the main thing I was taught was I had to go on faith. They called it faith work. I had to believe. And as I see the way he has came back since 2012, you can look at my films, my videos for 6 years now, and it's like looking at a jigsaw puzzle. Each piece of the puzzle is a clue that slaps you right in the face. Some of them are so obvious that people just refuse to believe it. But you can look at one piece of the puzzle, and it could be interesting. But when you take the time and put it all together, that's when you can see the picture and see it clearly. And that's what I have done my very best doing for everyone. I would not ever tell anybody, even this 2-hour interview that came out in 2012, don't look at that by itself and come to a conclusion. Look at everything that has came out before and everything that has came out since. You've got to be able to put everything together and look at it for what it is. One piece of the puzzle will give you a good idea. You know, I just published a video today on YouTube on Knights of the King's Realm. It shows, the video is called Published Photos of Elvis Presley after 1977, alive and well, or something like that. You can find it. I published it today on Knights of the King's Realm on YouTube. What this video shows is an advertisement that came out in 2012. And what they did was they took Elvis Presley at that time. He was around 77. Well, he was 77 in 2012. And with makeup and altering his appearance, they fixed him up to look like he did in this 1968 comeback special. They took the photograph and they put it on their advertisements, and they gave it to the world. Elvis Presley was 33 years old when he did the 68 comeback special. The man was beautiful. You look at the photo in this advertisement, his complexion ain't that great. You can see the bags and wrinkles under his eyes. Look at his teeth. It looks like he's only got a couple teeth. Sideburns and hair looks completely fake. This came out in 2012. I found it in an Elvis CD that came out at that time. I found this photo on a coupon for Graceland. I also found this photo in a brochure for Graceland in 2012 and on some of their other advertising.
Hey, Richard, I'm going to get you to hold on right there because we're going to hop out for our first break of the night. Richard Carson is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. He is a researcher into the conspiracy that Elvis is still alive. And we're going to find out his evidence and more questions for Richard Carson right after this break on Spaced Out Radio. So stick around. In hour number 3, I'm going to be joined by the preacher, Eric Markham. We're going to talk conspiracies in general, and we're going to have some fun tonight on this show as it already is. We're 1 hour down, 2 hours to go on Spaced Out Radio.